What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So last week we had Banjo Kazooie added to the Nintendo 64 online service, as well as having the next N64 game announced that for the month of February. But people did notice an interesting change as part of that update, and we're gonna go over that here today because it seemed to give people a bit more hope for the future of some of these N64 titles. Also, we're going to be talking about some confusion that hit PlayStation over the weekend after a tweet was made that had people thinking, wait, did they just leak that there is going to be backwards compatibility news this week? And we're also going to be talking about Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's out at the end of this week, and we had impressions come in from different outlets in Japan. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all of the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Grand Theft Auto Trilogy. Now, it was a whole thing when it came out, right? There's so many issues, and there have been bug fixes and patches and all this stuff everywhere, right? Like, you get massive list, hundreds of fixes. But something we were waiting for was the physical copy for the Switch. The physical copy for the PlayStation, Xbox are already out, but the Switch version was pushed out a bit further, and now we have the date. We can see this was tweeted out by Nintendo of America. The physical version of Grand Theft Auto the Trilogy, the definitive edition for Nintendo Switch, will be available in stores on February 11th. We have that nice big blue banner at the bottom there, download required, and I think we're still trying to figure out exactly what will be on the cartridge, and that's one of the reasons I'm kind of just like bypassing this completely still, because if it's just Grand Theft Auto 3 on the cartridge, that is a real shame, missing out on the opportunity to have a cartridge with Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas on it. But at least we have the date now. If you did want to pick it up physically, look for that next month. Also, we do have Gran Turismo 7 coming up in the first week of March, and we had the file size revealed online. We can see this posted up by PlayStation Game Size, Gran Turismo 7 on the PS5, 89.445 gigabytes. That's without the day one patch. The preload starts February 25th, launch on March 4th. Now, to put that in perspective, people are pointing out that Gran Turismo Sport is over 110 gigabytes, and a lot of that has to do, of course, with the content, DLC, extra cars, all the things they added post-launch, because there's quite a bit. Now, this download size does not include the day one patch, so there's a chance that on the PlayStation Direct store, which mentions like 110 gigabytes, I think, that could be a fairly large day one patch, but it's also something maybe they're pointing towards for the PS4 version, which tends to be larger than the PS5 version, because the PS4 with its mechanical hard drive has to have redundant files, all of these things. Mark Cerny went over that. But I am looking forward to Gran Turismo 7. It's just good to know now that some of these games are going to be kind of large. Like, it sounds like Horizon is going to be pretty big, Gran Turismo 7, almost 90 gigabytes here without the day one patch. So it is good that Sony at least enabled that M.2 slot, and I am seeing them go on sale more and more frequently on Amazon, so it might be worth getting one of those installed here soon. Oh, and we do have Dying Light 2 coming up here in a couple of weeks. I'm very excited for the game. It looks very, very good from a lot of the preview coverage that's been getting out there now, and videos and screenshots, all of this. But it does look like if you are someone who's trying to figure out, okay, do I get it on the PS4 now, or do I wait till I get a PS5 and then get it then? Because, like, do I have to buy both versions? That not quite. They will be doing a free upgrade. We can see this here, posted up by Eurogamer. Dying Light 2 getting free PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S upgrades. Now, there are some talks around the different modes where they have like a quality mode, performance mode, and they are still going to work to detail that, and I'm sure we'll look towards Digital Foundry to get the exact details and things that have to be changed there. It's just good to know, obviously, ahead of time, because this is something we have to ask across the board. We just talked about the new WWE 2K game coming up that is having that cross-gen bundle they have to buy for like $80. At least here with Dying Light 2, if you want it on the PS4 and you think you might get a PS5 later, you can still pick it up there and then just upgrade for free. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo Switch Online. Had a big update with Banjo Kazooie, a great game on the platform. If you've never played it, certainly check that one out. But there was another small update that came with it. First, though, let's talk about the next game that's coming up here. We can see this tweet from Nintendo. Save Termina before it's met with a terrible fate. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask comes to Nintendo Switch for Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack members in February. They announced this like right after Banjo Kazooie came out, so at least they're keeping up with that for now. they put the game out, that being Banjo Kazooie, and then they announced the next month's game. And they did that before, obviously. So with Paper Mario, then to Banjo, and now to Majora's Mask. And Majora's Mask is a great game. If you've never played it, check that one out in February. I'm sure they'll announce, like they did with Banjo, a solid release date as we get further into February there. And at least this is something Nintendo's keeping up, because that's been the biggest problem, is we don't really know what to expect with Nintendo 64 games that are being added, because we see the path they took with the Super Nintendo and Nintendo games. They were pretty much like every month they'd have something to talk about, and they went to 3 months, and they're like, we'll just do it whenever. So yeah, not a lot of confidence exactly with their update schedule for the more expensive expansion pack program. But if they keep this up, at least we'll have something to look forward to every month for the short term. I think they're going to start running out of N64 games after like year 2 if they release one each month, because there are only so many they can navigate when it comes to licensing and just quality. Although, hey, Quest 64, that's gonna be a big month when that one happens. But coming back to Majora's Mask, this will be one to keep an eye on, especially with the emulation in mind, since on the GameCube, I remember that just crashing a lot. So we'll see if they have a better solution here with this emulator they're using with the Switch currently. But speaking of emulation, part of this update seemed to address an issue people were bringing up with Ocarina of Time. We can see this posted up by Oatmeal Dome saying, it seems the water in the now infamous Water Temple room has been fixed in the latest update. I think the fog is still missing though. Haven't checked the rest of the game to see if any of the other issues have changed, but this is promising. Now, if you remember, we can see, I noticed Stop Skeleton from Fighting had like a good comparison that was drawn up. This was when the whole thing first happened, when the expansion pack online dropped, and basically people were comparing it to some of the older versions of Ocarina of Time, like the original, when it was on the Wii and the Virtual Console and then on the Switch. And that specific area looked terrible when it came to the water, considering the idea was the reflection in the water, and they just did not have that at all. Now, it still doesn't look as good as like the GameCube version, how they emulated that, but they at least added reflections back into the water, which is very important for that part of the game. If you've played Ocarina of Time, you know exactly what I'm talking about there. And this is starting to bring up hope that maybe Nintendo is listening to people and they're going back in to fix some of these games. I mean, we all know this is going to be an ongoing thing for a while now, and I would hope Nintendo is taking feedback seriously. It was mentioned in an interview, I think it was like Doug Bowser, who said, yeah, we're paying attention, but it's Nintendo of America. They're basically just like a marketing branch for Nintendo's headquarters in Japan. But if they can at least continue to fix this stuff as we go along, as people bring it up, that would at least be good for a service that we're paying $50 a year. Now, it does appear that in Paper Mario, hitting like a certain tree still crashes the game, so there's still a lot of work to be done here. And then, of course, just the overall emulation experience, which is good in some games like Star Fox, then not as good in others like Ocarina of Time and its input delay. So at least there's some hope for the future of these N64 games, and I guess we'll see where we are, say, going into the next generation of the Switch several years from now with this service. Next up, let's talk about backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 5. We, of course, know that there is the report based around Project Spartacus that will bring legacy PlayStation systems into a subscription service similar to Game Pass on the PlayStation 5. It sounds great, and there's a lot of excitement around going back to those older systems on the newer hardware from Sony. But there was a tweet that was made that got people thinking, this is getting revealed like today. Take a look at this. This was posted up over on PlayStation Japan Twitter account. And I mean, you can just see the advertisement is playing. It's 123 or 123. And then you have the PlayStation symbols. And everyone thought, wait a minute, did PlayStation Japan just accidentally tell us that they were going to have some sort of big announcement around this Project Spartacus? Not quite, unfortunately. What this appears to have been was just a teaser for a new PlayStation ad. That's kind of it. Like, there was no like, oh, we're going to be talking about this new Project Spartacus with this ad that lines up perfectly with 1, 2, and 3. I mean, I get it. I see why people looked at it and said, whoa, PlayStation 1, 2, and 3, those numbers all line up, and the PlayStation symbols. But it appears that the numbers 1, 2, and 3 are lyrics in the advertisement. Now, that was kind of it. What timing there, right? With Project Spartacus going around. Like I said, I understand why people were kind of connecting the dots there and thinking we were going to hear from Sony about backwards compatibility. And to be honest, whenever they tell us about it, I think it's just going to drop. Like, it's just going to be a blog post that they put up on PlayStation Blog, because that would take a while, I feel like, to go through, especially with pricing tiers and all this other stuff in a state of play or a PlayStation experience or something like that. It'd be easier just have a big write-up, go over all the details, list hopefully a fairly large number of games from a bunch of different generations, and then here's when you can get it, and that's it. So, unfortunately, while people are pretty hyped up around the idea of Project Spartacus, this didn't have anything to do with it. Next up, let's talk about Pokemon Legends Arceus, out this Friday, even though if you looked around the internet, you figured it's been out for like a week now. It's leaked and it's everywhere. Like, retail stores have been selling this game apparently, and you see people streaming it constantly now, but this Friday, I'll pick up a copy and start going through it. It appears so far impressions are very good, and there were official previews out from different outlets in Japan that were previously under embargo, and then of course that lifts, and you have a bunch of different quotes going out there around this game. Video Games Chronicle did a good job collecting these together, like from Famitsu, for example, saying it's safe to say that this game is completely different from previous titles. The first thing that impressed me when I started playing was the exhilarating feeling of moving around freely in the vast field. Game Watch said strongly matches the world view, making you feel more like you are adventuring in the Pokemon world, which I personally found to be an excellent system. Also going on to say, in addition, since you are directly attacked by Pokemon in this game, you will feel a great sense of tension when you discover a tough Pokemon. That's actually a good point, considering you would normally just throw your Pokemon out there and it's like, well, we didn't make it this time, we'll head back to the Pokemon Center. No, that Pokemon's just gonna come and punch you in the face. So yeah, you trying to move around and even escape. I get what they're saying here when it comes to the idea of heightened tension compared to some of the previous turn-based games. They also mentioned that some of the different Pokemon seem to have different personalities and would react to you differently, even based on the time of day. So at nighttime, they would run into some that were a bit more aggressive towards them, for example. And one of the highest bits of praise was from Game Watch, where they said it's a game experience like no other in the series, and I have high hopes for it as a completely new form of Pokemon game. And I was getting a little concerned because it's like a week out and we hadn't heard much in terms of previews, and reviews will probably go up on like Wednesday, like 2 days before the game comes out. And now I'm really curious how this game is going to review overall with like a Metacritic score and what people overall think of this game. But it seems like people online are happy with what they're playing so far through leaked copies. And I mean, previews out of Japan are good, and I think this could turn into a new series for the Pokemon Company and Game Freak. Just this different playstyle. You still have the turn-based RPG style games for Pokemon that release and kick off the new generations, all this. But I do think something like this that is more action-oriented, to where you can run around legitimately in combat while your Pokemon is fighting and all this, and more about exploration and cataloging the different Pokemon. Yeah, it is kind of like, as people say, a Breath of the Wild moment for Pokemon, but I think so far they're setting themselves up with several different types of Pokemon games, like the Let's Go series, the mainline series, with the standard turn-based, and then this more action exploration style. And while many people have been down on the visuals for the game, it all comes back to the gameplay, and visuals in general, we assume, will get better over time, as eventually Nintendo will go on to the next Switch system that should be more powerful, and who knows, maybe 10 years from now, this becomes like a staple series for the Pokemon Company, this Legends series. So exciting stuff. I'm ready to pick this one up on Friday though and see what it's all about. In our last bit of news, let's talk about Battlefield 2042. It got off to a rough start. It was missing several modes. The community seemed to point a lot of this out as well, and the game itself, just when it came down to the shooting mechanics, seemed to have a lot of issues. Well, now it appears that EA isn't too happy with the performance of the game. We can see this post up by Tom Henderson saying EA is reportedly very disappointed with how Battlefield 2042 has performed and is looking at all of the options when it comes to the title. This is including looking at free-to-play in some capacity. Now, it does appear that Tom Henderson will have more to say throughout this coming week, so we'll keep up to date on that. But the idea of Battlefield 2042 going free to play is interesting because there are a lot of people who just paid for the game. Like, how do you take care of them? Do you give them in-game currency for a cash shop that you set up for the $70 purchase. Remember, this is a game that I believe had the cross-gen bundle for like $100 or something like that, so that's tough. But if you look at their concurrent player count on something like Steam, it's fallen below Battlefield 5. I want you to think of the backlash and the pushback that Battlefield 5 had when it came out. And now consider that Battlefield 2042, months after launch, is already falling below it in concurrent player count. It makes sense why you would hear reports that EA is concerned around this game. And if you look around, I mean, there are a lot of free-to-play options right now with different shooters, and this is strictly a multiplayer game. There's no campaign here, so I'm gonna be curious to see what EA does here. If they don't have Battlefield 2042 go free-to-play, maybe the next Battlefield game, years and years from now, releases as just a free-to-play service-based game, and they come up with something similar to Call of Duty Warzone as an example, but we'll see what happens here because certainly Battlefield 2042 needs some kind of spark. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday where I asked, which N64 Zelda game do you like more? 30% said Majora's Mask, 70% said Ocarina of Time. Yeah, I figured this was going to happen, that Ocarina of Time was going to absolutely crush Majora's Mask when it came to the popular vote. But I really like Majora's Mask. I mean, at the time it came out, you needed an expansion pack. That was a whole thing to figure out because the expansion pack was kind of hard to find at the time. And if somebody gifted you Majora's Mask during Christmas or your birthday or something, and you didn't have an expansion pack, you weren't playing it. So that was kind of annoying on its own. But the idea of kind of the time loop mechanic, it being a much darker game overall, and having to deal with loss and different things in the game as you turn into like the Sora or Goron, all of this, it was just such a different take at the time, and collecting all the masks was really fun. So if you've never played it before, I completely recommend you check it out next month. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from James saying, there's one thing I've absolutely no doubt about when it comes to the Activision purchase. Every single one of those games is going to be released day one on Game Pass. Yeah, it's going to add a lot of value to Game Pass like overnight. As soon as that deal closes, it sounds like Microsoft's going to look to flip some switches and then, oh, here's Crash Bandicoot, here's a bunch of Call of Duties, here's Tony Hawk, here's Overwatch, all these things, right? And then all of those newer titles that come out from Activision Blizzard going forward will just drop into Game Pass day one. I will say, if you're someone who primarily relies on Game Pass for releases, like if I was a younger gamer and I didn't have a job to go out and just buy like a bunch of games or anything like that, Game Pass would be amazing, right? Like back in the day, I had the Sega channel. That to me was like Game Pass now, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world that just games would show up on my Sega Genesis. It worked half the time, but when it did, it was really cool. So if that's the case, I get why people are legitimately happy about this purchase because it means that their Game Pass subscription is going to be worth a lot more. But does that also mean that Microsoft will be raising the price of Game Pass, say, in the next 2 or 3 years? Because we'll see about that one. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below. But everything we talked about here today was the N64 update, fixing some stuff in Ocarina of Time. Let me know about that. Or, of course, Majora's Mask heading to the service next month. Or what about this whole Project Spartacus thing? When do you think Sony reveals it and tells us we can play all these PS1, PS2, PS3, and PSP games on our PlayStation 5? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.